On August 26, 2010, authorities in Roanoke County, Virginia, announced that the death of 32-year-old Met Johnson had been ruled an accident. Johnson, a nurse and mother of two, had died from a gunshot wound inside her home. Investigators initially accepted her husband George Johnson's account that the firearm discharged unintentionally during a domestic argument. There was no immediate murder charge. The case appeared, at least publicly, to be a tragic accident. Months later, a photograph would change that narrative. The image was taken inside the couple's bedroom, where Metra's body had been found. Near her hand lay a hairdryer. Prosecutors would later argue that its placement did not align with George Johnson's description of a sudden struggle over a gun. The photograph itself was not dramatic. It simply showed the scene as officers encountered it. But to those who re-examined the case file, it raised a question. Did the physical evidence match the story? To understand the significance of that image, it's necessary to look at what happened the night of August 24th, 2010. According to court records, the couple had been arguing. George Johnson later told investigators that Metra retrieved a handgun during the dispute and that the weapon fired accidentally during a struggle. When first responders arrived, they found her deceased on the bedroom floor. George had called 911. Early interpretation of the scene did not immediately contradict his account. Domestic disputes involving firearms can escalate unpredictably, and accidental discharges during physical altercations are not unheard of. Although the medical examiner classified the manner of death as homicide, meaning death at the hands of another, prosecutors initially weighed whether intent could be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. Metra Johnson's family expressed doubt about the accident explanation. They pointed to strain in the marriage and urged investigators to look deeper. Still, without clear forensic contradiction at the outset, the case did not immediately move forward as a murder prosecution. The turning point came as prosecutors conducted a closer review of the evidence, including crime scene photographs. In the photograph, the hair dryer appeared positioned as though Metra had been using it. Prosecutors later argued that the arrangement of objects in the room seemed inconsistent with a chaotic struggle. Combined with trajectory analysis and other forensic testimony presented at trial, the image contributed to a broader reassessment of what may have occurred. Ballistics experts examined the bullet's path. Investigators evaluated statements and timelines. Prosecutors argued that aspects of George Johnson's account were inconsistent with physical evidence. The defense maintained that the shooting was accidental and that interpretations of the scene were speculative. In 2011, George Johnson was indicted on a charge of second-degree murder. During the 2012 trial, the photograph of the bedroom scene became a key exhibit. Prosecutors suggested the scene may have been staged to support the accidental narrative. The defense disputed that characterization, emphasizing the absence of eyewitnesses and arguing that domestic confrontations are often chaotic and difficult to reconstruct precisely. After deliberation, the jury convicted George Johnson of second-degree murder. However, in 2014, the Virginia Court of Appeals overturned conviction, ruling that certain evidence had been improperly admitted. The case was sent back for further proceedings. The reversal did not determine innocence. It required a new trial. In 2016, George Johnson entered an Alford plea to voluntary manslaughter. Under an Alford plea, a defendant maintains innocence while acknowledging that prosecutors have sufficient evidence that could likely result in conviction. He was sentenced to 12 years in prison, with additional suspended time. The legal outcome reflected a compromise rather than a definitive declaration of intent, but it marked a departure from the original characterization of the death as an accident. The case illustrates how early conclusions can shape an investigation. In fast-moving domestic incidents, investigators must make rapid assessments. If an explanation initially appears plausible, it can influence how subsequent evidence is interpreted. Photographs, however, preserve details that may be revisited later with fresh perspective. In this case, the image of a hair dryer near Metra Johnson's hand did not prove guilt on its own. It did not contain a confession or direct evidence of intent, but it prompted closer scrutiny of the scene and encouraged prosecutors to question whether the physical arrangement matched the narrative. Metra Johnson's family endured years of legal proceedings, from the initial accident ruling to indictment, conviction, reversal, and plea agreement. For them, The process was long and painful, marked by uncertainty and public attention. No sweeping policy reforms followed the case. But within legal circles, it became a reminder of the importance of thorough scene analysis and the risk of confirmation bias. Investigations depend not only on what is obvious, but on what seems slightly out of place. The photograph that altered the course of this case was not sensational. It simply recorded a quiet bedroom in the aftermath of violence. Yet in that still frame was a detail that challenged an accepted explanation. Sometimes, the difference between accident and accountability is not found in dramatic revelations, but in the decision to look again at what was already there.